In 2003, Internet Explorer was untouchable, controlling 95% of the web and crushing giants like Netscape seemingly overnight. But behind that iconic blue E, Microsoft made a single, devastating miscalculation. The kind that would not just cost them the browser war, but nearly erase their place in Internet history. How did the champion of the web lose everything it once fought for? The answer begins with a ruthless plan in Redmond that changed the Internet forever. In 1995, Netscape Navigator was the undisputed king of the web. Its green and blue logo opened the Internet for millions, holding more than 70% of the browser market. But inside Microsoft's headquarters in Redmond, Bill Gates saw something alarming. Netscape's browser wasn't just a new tool, it was a threat to Windows itself. If the web became the main way people used computers, Microsoft's operating system could fade into the background. Gates refused to let that happen. On May 26, 1995, he sent out a company-wide memo with the subject line, "The Internet Tidal Wave." The message was blunt. Microsoft would pivot overnight to make the Internet its top priority. Every division was ordered to focus on web integration. Gates demanded that Windows ship with a browser, and that browser had to be good enough to take on Netscape head-to-head. Microsoft didn't have a browser ready, so they moved fast. Thomas Reardon, a young program manager, pushed to license the core code from Spyglass, a company with the rights to Mosaic, the browser that inspired Netscape itself. In early 1995, Microsoft signed the deal, and within months, Internet Explorer 1.0 was born. It shipped in August 1995 as part of the Microsoft Plus pack for Windows 95. Most users barely noticed, but for Microsoft, it was the first real shot in a new war. The stakes were clear to everyone involved. In June 1995, Microsoft even approached Netscape's leaders with a proposal: join forces or prepare for battle. Netscape refused. From that moment, the strategy hardened. Microsoft would use the weight of Windows to push Internet Explorer onto every new PC. Reardon coordinated the technical roadmap, while Steve Ballmer hammered out deals with PC makers, ensuring that Internet Explorer would be installed by default, and that removing it, or pre-installing a rival, would be nearly impossible.
Hold on a minute. If you're enjoying what you see so far, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It helps me preserve the history of these untold tech stories. Now, let's continue.
By the end of 1996, Internet Explorer's market share had jumped from almost nothing to nearly 40%. Netscape's grip was slipping. Microsoft's engineers began merging browser code into the heart of Windows, making Internet Explorer a permanent fixture. Internal emails captured the urgency. Some worried about antitrust risk, others about technical stability, but the orders from the top were clear: win the browser war at any cost. The pace was relentless. Internet Explorer 3 launched in August 1996, followed by version 4 in September 1997. Each release was more deeply woven into Windows, making it harder for average users to switch. By the late 1990s, the blue E was everywhere. New PCs, school labs, office desktops, all shipped with Internet Explorer front and center. For Microsoft, it wasn't just about winning a market. It was about securing the future of Windows itself. Bundling wasn't just a technical choice. It was a calculated business move, engineered down to the last detail. With Windows running on nearly every new PC, Microsoft used its leverage to make Internet Explorer impossible to ignore. Thomas Reardon, the driving force behind the browser's integration, worked closely with teams to weave IE into the very fabric of Windows. By the launch of Internet Explorer 3 in 1996 and version 4 a year later, the browser wasn't just pre-installed, it was stitched into the operating system itself. For most users, Internet Explorer became inseparable from Windows. the distribution muscle didn't stop at software. Microsoft's contracts with computer manufacturers, known as OEMs, locked in strict requirements. If a company wanted to sell Windows, it had to ship Internet Explorer as the default browser. Removing it, or even putting a competitor like Netscape front and center, was off the table. Internal emails later revealed Microsoft managers discussing ways to tie IE to Windows, making it as difficult as possible for rivals to get a foothold. Internet service providers were swept up too. Microsoft offered deals, sometimes slashing prices or providing Internet Explorer for free, if ISPs agreed to distribute it to their customers. The result was a tidal wave of new users who never had to think about which browser to choose. The blue E just appeared, ready to click, on millions of desktops from day one. Netscape, once the pioneer, suddenly found itself boxed out. Its market share plummeted as each new PC shipped with Internet Explorer front and center. For many, the web became synonymous with the Microsoft browser. But this aggressive strategy came at a price. Competitors and regulators accused Microsoft of abusing its dominance. In May 1998, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a landmark antitrust lawsuit, arguing that Microsoft's bundling tactics were crushing competition and limiting consumer choice. The courtroom drama that followed exposed internal emails, secret meetings, and a company willing to do whatever it took to win. Bill Gates' videotaped deposition, evasive and combative, became infamous. The trial gripped the tech world, with the fate of Microsoft and the future of the web hanging in the balance. As the legal battle raged, Microsoft's power looked unbreakable. Internet Explorer's share soared past 80%, on its way to a near-total monopoly. Yet inside Redmond, the seeds of caution were being sown. Engineers and executives, once emboldened by victory, grew wary of drawing more fire from regulators. The very tactics that secured dominance would soon make Microsoft hesitant to push further. For now, though, the browser war looked over, at least on the surface. On August 24, 2001, Microsoft released Internet Explorer 6. At first, it looked like another victory lap. IE6 shipped by default on every copy of Windows XP, instantly reaching millions of desktops. But behind the scenes, the browser's foundation was already showing cracks. Microsoft's leadership, still wary from antitrust scrutiny and convinced the browser war was over, shifted resources elsewhere. The team that had once pushed out new versions at breakneck speed was reassigned. For 5 years, Internet Explorer barely changed. The architecture of IE6 reflected choices made in a different era, one where the goal was total integration with Windows, not security or flexibility. At the heart of these problems was ActiveX, a technology designed to let websites run powerful programs directly inside the browser. In theory, it allowed rich web experiences, streaming video, interactive forms, even desktop-style applications. But in practice, ActiveX opened the door to a flood of malware. Any website could prompt users to install software with just a click, and the browser often gave that code the same rights as the operating system itself. Security researchers warned that IE6's trust model was fatally flawed, but nothing changed. The browser's deep ties to Windows created even more risk. IE6 treated parts of your hard drive as just another website, blurring the lines between local files and the open internet. Hackers quickly learned to exploit these boundaries. Drive-by downloads and phishing attacks soared. By 2004, the U.S. Computer Emergency Readiness Team advised users to avoid Internet Explorer entirely unless absolutely necessary. In Germany, government agencies issued public warnings, urging citizens to switch browsers to protect their data. Developers faced their own frustrations. IE6's approach to web standards was inconsistent at best. CSS rendering bugs, broken PNG transparency, and the infamous box model forced coders to invent endless workarounds just to get basic websites to function. Forums filled with complaints and desperate tips. For every new web technology, there was a list of things that simply didn't work in IE6. As the rest of the web moved forward, Microsoft's browser stood still, trapping users and developers alike in a maze of outdated code. The cost of neglect was measured not just in technical debt, but in real-world damage. Major security breaches made global headlines. Malware outbreaks traced back to IE6 vulnerabilities cost businesses and individuals millions in lost data and cleanup. Even as security patches trickled out, the core issues remained. The browser had become a time bomb, essential for daily life, but dangerously unreliable. Inside Microsoft, some engineers recognized the risks, but the company's priorities had shifted. The focus was on new products and defending Windows, not fixing a browser that already owned the market. For users, the blue E was no longer a symbol of progress, it was a warning sign. The stage was set for a rebellion, as people began searching for any alternative that offered safety and stability. In the early 2000s, frustration among web developers reached a boiling point. Internet Explorer 6, once hailed as cutting edge, had become a daily headache for anyone building websites. The browser's unpredictable behavior forced coders to invent endless workarounds, so-called CSS hacks, just to make pages look right. Forums overflowed with complaints about broken layouts, disappearing images, and the infamous box model bug. For every new idea in web design, there was a list of things that simply didn't work in Internet Explorer 6. Developers weren't just annoyed, they were angry. They watched as Microsoft ignored the standards set by the World Wide Web Consortium, choosing instead to push proprietary features and half-finished implementations. Building a single website often meant writing two versions, one for Internet Explorer and one for everyone else. The cost wasn't just technical, it was creative. Innovation slowed as designers spent their time fixing bugs instead of inventing new experiences. Then, in 2004, hope arrived from an unexpected source. Out of the ashes of Netscape, a new browser appeared, Firefox. It was open source, free to download, and, most importantly, focused on following web standards. Firefox introduced tabbed browsing, pop-up blocking, and a security model that put users back in control. For developers, it was a breath of fresh air. Suddenly, there was a browser that respected their work and let their sites shine without endless compromises. The Mozilla community behind Firefox moved fast, releasing updates and listening to user feedback. Web forums and blogs filled with stories of people switching from Internet Explorer to Firefox, celebrating newfound speed and stability. The browser's logo, a fiery fox circling the globe, became a symbol of rebellion against stagnation and corporate control. But inertia still gripped the business world. Many large companies clung to Internet Explorer, locked in by custom-built intranet sites and legacy applications that only worked in Microsoft's browser. IT departments hesitated to support anything new, fearing the cost of retraining and migration. For years, office workers would open Internet Explorer each morning, not out of choice, but because it was the only option their company allowed. Outside the corporate firewall, though, the tide was turning. Firefox downloads soared past 100 million within a year. Developers rallied around the new browser, building add-ons and championing open standards. For the first time in years, users had a real choice. The web felt alive again, faster, safer, and more creative. Microsoft's grip on the browser world was slipping, not because of a single competitor, but because an entire community decided it was time for something better. In September 2008, a new challenger appeared, Google Chrome. Unlike the cluttered browsers of the past, Chrome opened with a single blinking address bar and a promise: speed, security, and simplicity. Google's engineers stripped out legacy code, built a new engine called V8, for faster JavaScript, and isolated each tab to prevent one crash from taking down the whole browser. But it wasn't just technical prowess that set Chrome apart. Google controlled the world's most visited website, the search homepage. With a single banner, they invited millions to try Chrome. The download was fast, the install seamless, and within minutes, users experienced a web that felt brand new. Google didn't stop at marketing. Chrome included a silent updater, quietly patching bugs and rolling out features without nagging users or waiting for them to act. This relentless improvement cycle left older browsers looking slow and vulnerable. Meanwhile, Chrome's open-source Chromium project allowed other companies to build on its foundation, spreading its influence even further. By 2012, the numbers told the story. Chrome surpassed Internet Explorer as the world's most popular browser, overtaking a giant that once seemed untouchable. The shift was swift. Within 4 years, Chrome grew from 0 to the top of the charts, while Internet Explorer's grip slipped away. For millions, the blue E faded into the background, replaced by a colorful circle that symbolized a faster, safer web. The era of Internet Explorer's dominance was over, and a new browser war had begun. Internet Explorer's place in history was sealed long before its official retirement. As the world moved to smartphones and tablets, Microsoft's browser became an afterthought. On iPhones and Android devices, Safari and Chrome took center stage. Internet Explorer, built for the desktop era, simply couldn't keep up. Its market share dropped below 5% by the late 2010s, a far cry from the heights it once enjoyed. On June 15, 2022, Microsoft pulled the plug. Internet Explorer was retired after nearly 27 years in service. For most users, the blue E had already faded into memory, replaced by faster, safer, and more flexible browsers. But inside offices and government agencies, the end of support forced a scramble to rewrite old systems that still depended on IE's quirks. The browser that once defined the internet was now a liability. Microsoft's answer was Edge, a new browser rebuilt from the ground up. But even here, the past lingered. Edge eventually abandoned its own technology and adopted Chromium, the open-source engine behind Google Chrome. The company that once set the rules for the web now played by someone else's. Internet Explorer became a punchline, the app people used once to download something better. Its story is a reminder that dominance can vanish in a single generation, and that in technology, the only constant is change. At its peak in 2003, Internet Explorer controlled 95% of the browser market, a figure unmatched before or since. Documents show this domination was achieved through bundling Internet Explorer with Windows, a strategy outlined in Bill Gates's 1995 Internet Tidal Wave memo, and later challenged in the 1998 US Antitrust case. The evidence reveals that after crushing Netscape, Microsoft halted meaningful updates for 5 years, leaving Internet Explorer vulnerable to security flaws and falling behind web standards. Firefox's 2004 launch and Chrome's 2008 debut, promoted on Google's homepage, marked the rapid decline of Internet Explorer's influence. Some internal Microsoft deliberations, especially regarding post-2001 strategic decisions, remain undisclosed. Today, Microsoft's Edge browser relies on Chromium, the very technology once used to outpace Internet Explorer. The story of Internet Explorer proves that dominance built on aggressive tactics can vanish when innovation stops. In technology, lasting leadership is never guaranteed. Users always choose what comes next.
Thank you for watching. I'd be genuinely interested in hearing your opinion on this in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. There's much more to come.